Okay, which are those two chapters which we have already taken in a daily schedule? Okay, so fundamentals of economics and supply and demand. So let's start. Before starting, I always believe that we must start with the motivation. So let's start with the motivational quote. Change begins at the end of your comfort zone. Means what? When you come out of your comfort zone, only then you begin to change. When COVID arose, we were in a comfort zone of going to the office and working. But when COVID came, we came out of our comfort zone and we started online working, online classes, everything we started, right? Download Adda 24/7 app on your mobile. Tell your friends, share it on your social media. Why? Because you'll get various updates, study material, video lectures on all the banking as well as other government exams. Okay, so it's not only useful for banking, it's useful for other exams as well. Okay, we are starting with this ABM, BFM and retail batch targeting June 22 exam. Okay, March 28th we are starting 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. So join that as fast as possible. You will get 77% discount if you use the code of mine. I'll show you the code. Also we are having this JAIIB batch targeting this 22 May 22 exam starting from March 7th. Okay, 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Okay, so join that batch also. In fact, tell your friends. You guys are in CAIIB, so tell your JAIIB friends to join the same. Now, important part. We are having a 77% discount running on both these classes and other JAIIB and CAIIB products. Okay, so grab this opportunity as the prices are going to rise soon. Okay, use this code Y432. This code is the key for your discount of 77%. Okay, do use this code as fast as possible. Share it with your friends so that you get the full discount of 77%. Okay, so let's start with today's topic. Okay, we'll do it chapter wise. Okay, first chapter is fundamentals of economics or macroeconomics. So we are totally in summary today. Okay, we won't be going into details. Details have already gone in various lectures earlier. So those who are attending it regularly, you'll see this as the revision for you. Okay, let's start. Economics is the science that deals with the production, allocation and use of goods and services, right? There were various definitions of economics given by various economists, right? We had studied that. So what is the summary of that? Summary is this: deals with the production, allocation and use of goods and services, right? Second definition also you will study. Economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between the ends and the scarce means which have alternative uses, right? What was this definition? There were 2-3 definitions, right? One was of Adam Smith, was related totally to wealth. Then we had second definitions, other definitions which dealt with resources, scarce and ends, right? Lionel Robbins, and there was one more, right? So these studied about the human behavior and the scarce resources. Okay. Then microeconomics is concerned with the behavior of individual entities such as markets, firms and households. So we studied the difference between micro and macroeconomics. Okay, what was microeconomics? Microeconomics means micro. Micro means it's related to individual. Now individual can be individual firm, individual market, individual household. Okay, now here it's always a comparison which is done with micro and macro. First I'll tell you about macro. Macro views the performance of the economy as a whole. And importantly in macroeconomics, we have various theories which are related to macroeconomics. Mainly macroeconomics studies the theories which are later applicable to microeconomics also. Okay. So the difference between micro and macro, important part is basically micro will be related to individuals. Now the important concern over here is if I take the country as a whole, then for me the states or the city's economy would be microeconomics and the country's economy would be macroeconomics. Now if I take world as a whole, then for the country's economy will be microeconomics for me and the world's overall economy will be macroeconomics for me. So now what has happened? The country which was in macro earlier, now it has gone into micro. So what do we mean by this? We mean that every entity which we study, it depends on whom we are comparing, right? It's always a comparative analysis. So country can be macro for one comparison and micro for another comparison. Got the point? Okay, let's move on. Every society must answer three fundamental questions: what, how, and for whom. Okay, like we have that in civics we studied that government of the people, by the people, and by the people, for the people, and of the people, right? Similarly here also three questions for economics: what, how, and for whom. Now what do you mean by this? We have studied this already, but just to give you summarize this, what means what kinds and quantities are produced among the wide range of all possible goods and services. Means a human being needs thousands of goods and services on a daily basis. So should the country produce everything? No. So what kind of goods are produced, and what that is decided upon what is the country's speciality. Country's speciality in the sense the economics over there, the geopolitical situation over there. According to that, we should be able to produce whatever goods or services are best suited or less costly for production. That we must produce, right? Keep it very simple. See here, if you try to grow vegetables in the desert areas, right, or in the Middle East countries, will that work? No, they can produce oil only, because oil is available in abundant over there. Similarly for India, if we go on producing, if we try to search for oil fields in India, will that work? No. So a country should always produce those goods which are easy, means less costly for production in that country. Okay. How then? First was what, second is how. How are resources used in producing these goods? So it depends on the natural resources available, right? That's why we gave the example earlier. Vegetables can be grown in Indian or Asian subcontinent, right? Whereas in Middle East, what do we see? In Middle East we can grow those vegetables because it's a desert area out there. There the production would be of something else. And third is for whom. For whom are the goods produced? For whom means what? Here, goods are always produced for two types, two categories basically. First is within the country. Second is for exports, right? So what is the distribution of income and consumption among the different individuals and classes? So goods will be always produced firstly for our country itself, and then we'll go for exporting. Any country does the same logic. Okay. Next, then we studied about economies, various economies, right? What was the economy? Anybody remembers? Market economy, command economy, mixed economy, laissez-faire, right? All those studied. So a market economy is the one in which individuals and private firms make the major decisions about the production and consumption, right? See here, there were two ends which I had shown you. One is the command economy, that is communism we call it, right? Or socialist economy, and second is the market economy. In socialist economy, every decision was taken by the government, and in market economy, the decisions were taken by all the firms and the production houses and consumers, right? So it's a free market economy. So market economy is the one in which individuals and private firms make the major decisions about the production and consumption. A system of prices, of markets, of profits and losses, of incentives and rewards determine what, how and for whom the things are to be produced, right? So here, who decides what is to be produced? It's not the government. It's the market which decides what is to be produced, for whom, right? Then in command economy, it's totally opposite of market economy. In command economy, government addresses the major economic question by virtue of its ownership of resources and its power to enforce decisions. Now what does this mean? The government is in direct involvement in production and distribution of goods and services. Whereas in market economy, government has no role or lesser role. Okay, no role is a laissez-faire economy. It's a extreme case of market economy, correct? And what are we in India? We are a mixed economy, market and command, a mixture of that. Okay, that's where we are. Okay, so in command economy, government will interfere everywhere, in production, in distribution, in consumption. In market economy, government won't interfere at all. okay, or to the lesser extent. Then we come to next chapter, that is supply and demand. So basically we are dealing in summary only, huh? That's why I won't be going into details in today's lecture. If you can check our earlier, you can follow our YouTube channel, okay, Officers Adda 24/7, and there you'll get all my lectures. So follow them, and then you'll understand this summary, okay. Supply and demand. There exists a definite relationship between the market price of the good and the demanded quantity of that good, other things being constant. So what do you mean by this? Always the price and the quantity demanded, okay, will always have a direct relationship, okay. Not direct, actually definite relationship. It can't be a direct relationship. Means if the price of the good increases, the quantity demanded will decrease definitely, right? Or the price of the good decreases, the quantity demanded will be increasing, right? That's why what did we say, saw in that lecture? The logic was the law of demand is always sloping downwards, or the demand curve always slopes downwards, right? And what was the reverse thing? The reverse thing was about the supply curve. Supply's curve always slopes upwards, okay. So now we come to law of downward sloping demand curve. When the price of the commodity is raised, other things being constant, buyers tend to buy less commodity. See here, price increased, buyers will buy less. Similarly, when the price is lower, other things being constant, quantity demanded increases. We see this in our daily life, right? Means whenever, if you have to buy, let's say any of the goods, or gold, let's see what is the demand for gold now. See here, quantity, the rate of gold presently is roughly around 53 to 54,000, right? So that is quoting. Within last month it was around 48,000. So now what happens from its if it's risen from 48 to 54, 55,000, the quantity demanded by common public would be less definitely, because it's costing higher, right? Same thing applies to all your daily consumption, or all your consumption, I would say, not only daily, all your consumption goods, okay. Next, the demand curve is found by adding together the quantities demanded by all individuals at each price. Now we had two types of schedules, right? Market schedule, demand schedule we had. In demand schedule we had two categories, right? Individual demand schedule and market demand schedule. You remember it? Right. So go follow that video again. So market demand schedule or market demand curve is found by adding all the individual demand curves, okay, all the individual demands, and then summing them up, and then it forms a demand curve. When there are changes in the factors other than the goods own price which affect the quantity purchased, we call these changes as shift in demand. Now understand this concept, follow that video also, understand the concept properly. See here, if the quantity demanded changes due to price, then it's okay, it's under the law of demand. But if the quantity demanded changes not because of because of price, but some other factors, so in that case it's called a shift in demand curve, okay. So it's called a shift in demand curve. Next, demand increases or decreases when the quantity demanded at each price increases. What is demand basically? If there are 5 persons demanding for a particular flat, or if there are 20 persons demanding for the same flat, so where the demand is more? Where it's 20. So when the quantity demanded increases, the demand also increases. So once the demand increase, why does any demand increase? Generally it's because of the price. But if it's other factors than the price, then it's called a shift in demand. Can you give some example of other factors other than the price? So what are the factors? What did we see in COVID? In COVID, the prices of the masks, right, didn't fall that much, but then also the demand increased because of other factors, right? Same is the logic. So other factors means any quantity, black and white TV. Do you, any one of you buy black and white TV? Even if it is given to you at 500 rupees today, nobody will buy, right? Because the other factors work on the same, okay. Next, the supply schedule. Now we are going in the reverse way. Earlier we studied demand schedule or demand curve. The supply schedule or supply curve for a commodity shows the relationship between its market price and amount of that commodity producers are willing to produce and sell. See here these are two opposite ends. First end was market price versus demand, which I and you were planning to consume, and here market price versus the one who is trying to sell. So what is the logic behind this? We had already studied this in our lecture related to supply curve. So there we had studied that if something, okay, let's give me an let me give an example. If I am supplying some pen to you at ₹5, so I'll supply, let's say, 100 pens. Now if the price of that pen increases to ₹10, so from my side, I am the supplier. Will I try to supply you more or will I try to supply you less? Definitely more, because if I try to if I sell you, instead of 100 pens, I sell you 200 pens, then what is the net increase in my revenue? Right, 5 rupees. 5 rupees was the earlier price. 10 is the next price. So 5 rupees into this additional 100 sold. So 500 is my net profit, additional profit, I would say. Right. So that's why supply curve, supply schedule is always opposite to the demand curve. Demand, when the price increases, demand always decreases. But when the supply price increases, supply always tries to increase. I won't say it always increases, but any seller would try to increase the sales. Okay. When changes in the factors other than goods own price affect the quantity supplied, then we can call this as shift in the supply curve. Right. So similar to that of the demand curve. Right. So what do I mean by this? Okay, let's see an example of private classes for those 12th NEET, IIT, right? Roughly all of them are charging roughly the same fees. Okay, but then also, other than price, what are the other factors which call for demand of some class, X class, whereas the Y class is not in that much demand? So these factors are other factors. The factors can be anything. We are not going into details for those factors. Okay. So example was only for factors other than price. Okay. Next, market equilibrium comes at a price at which the quantity demanded equals the quantity supply. Logic means if anything which is demanded and anything which is supplied equals to each other, then only it's called as a equilibrium. If the demand is more and supply is less, then the quantity will be in premium. If the demand is less and supply is more, it will be at discount. Right? Same thing happens in those RBI bonds also. Right? When you study this module B, you will understand this equilibrium means premium and discount. Okay? At that equilibrium, there is no tendency for the price to rise or fall. So equilibrium means what? I am ready to buy from you at X price and you are ready to sell to me at X price. So where is the question of price rising or selling? If it rises, then I am not ready to buy, or if it falls, then you are not ready to sell. Right? So equilibrium, there is no price rise or fall. Okay. If there is a price rise or fall, then the equilibrium shifts. Got the point? The equilibrium price is also called as market clearing price. Clear? Market clearing price means where I have to sell off my goods. This denotes that supply and demand orders are filled. The books are cleared of the orders and demanders and suppliers are satisfied. Quite simple. The equilibrium price and the quantity come where the amount willingly supplied equals the amount willingly demanded. Quite logic here. It's just the reversal or the addition of words. Okay. Basically supply and demand, or you can say that the words are just mingled with each other. Okay. So basically what are we doing? We are saying just one thing. When the supply and demand equals, it means that there is a equilibrium. Okay. In a competitive market, this equilibrium is found at the intersection of supply and demand curves. So competitive market means what? Competitive market means basic, remember important part. No single supplier can rig the market price. That is known as competitive market price. Otherwise it's called as monopoly. Monopoly, there is no competition, right? So no single supplier will able to rig the prices. So that is known as competitive market. This equilibrium is found at intersection of the supply and demand curve. Obviously, means equilibrium will always be found at what? Supply and demand curve, where they intersect. There are no shortages or surpluses at the equilibrium price. So what do you mean by shortages and surpluses here? When there is a shortage or surplus, when is the shortage? When the shortage is when the demand is more and supply is less. When is the surplus? When demand is less and supply is more, right? You check the video of mine or a lecture of mine on that intersection of that demand and supply curve. The top portion is known as surplus, the below portion is known as shortage. Okay. When the elements underlying the demand or supply change, this leads to shift in demand or supply and to changes in the market equilibrium of the price and the quantity. See here, when the elements underlying demand or supply change. Now what do I mean by this? It means that elements can be, firstly it can be price, secondly it can be other factors. So even in both the cases, even if the price changes, then also equilibrium will shift. And if the other factors change other than price, then also equilibrium will change. So equilibrium, basically what is equilibrium? It is I am ready to buy, you are ready to sell. Okay. If the price changes, I am not ready to buy. So equilibrium changes. Or if the some other factors which we gave earlier, for factors are different for various products basically. Okay. So if the factors other than the price change, then also you are not ready to sell then, or I am not ready to buy. So equilibrium again shifts, right? So that was the basic lecture. That was the basic purpose of today's lecture. Today's lecture was only summary of chapter 1 and 2, which we have already studied. Okay. So go through this lecture again and again. Also I would suggest go through the earlier lectures as well, which are available to you directly on YouTube, this Officers Adda 24/7 app. Okay. So subscribe to this channel, and also I would suggest we are starting with a new batch, BFM, ABM and retail, starting from March 28th, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. 22 June target batch. Okay, means exam is on in June 22, right? So we are targeting that batch. And remember, we'll be covering BFM, ABM and retail, all the three subjects. So avail this batch, come to this batch as fast as possible. Remember, why am I saying this? Because importantly, also this new batch of JAIIB is coming up on March 7th. Okay, you can use this batch also. Means not only you are in CAIIB. Tell your friends in banks to join this. Here also we'll be covering this LRB, AFB and PPB, all the three subjects. Remember, portion is going to change for CAIIB in 23. So clear fast as possible. You have only 2 exams left, this June and December. Okay, so clear as fast as possible. Okay, otherwise change portion, nobody knows what will be the study material over there. Okay. So join these batches for JAIIB and CAIIB. Use this code, 77% off code. Okay. So I'll again tell you the same thing. Use the 77. See here, why 432? If you use this code, 77% off means what? It's an investment in your life. Means we generally spend 3 to 4,000 on some hoteling, right? So instead of spending there, invest in your life, right? This will, if you get single increment in JAIIB, you have already got, you all guys, right? If you get 2 increments for CAIIB, how much will it end up at the end of your career? It will end up roughly not less than 20 to 25 lakhs extra. So for those 25 lakhs, you are just investing 3, 4, 5,000 max to max, right? Using the discount code. So use it as fast as possible. Never ever waste your time in your younger ages. Okay. So I'll take the leave now, and see you in the class as well as see you in the next lecture. Okay. Bye.